Hi, my name's Nick and welcome to the Rig and Farm YouTube channel. My wife Ashley and I bought this 25-acre property specifically to start a farm, and we started this channel before we even found this property. Before our home here on the farm was even built, we'd considered going solar because when we contacted the power company, we realized it was going to cost almost $12,000 just for them to run lines to the house. We also found out that it's against the law to be completely off-grid, and we legally had to be tied in to the electric system. We were forced into it and actually had a very bad experience with our local electric company, and unfortunately they were the only provider available to us. We paid them in full January of 2021, and they didn't even give us power until August of 2021. Our decision to go solar was actually partially motivated to give that company less money on a monthly basis. We bought an 11 kilowatt Solar Edge solar system from Solar Titan USA, and I'm going to go ahead and share that entire experience with you. We're going to show you the installation along with problems we had during that whole process, the issues we're still currently dealing with, as well as a lot of the misconceptions about solar power, such as the federal tax credit and how much the system truly costs. Before we're into going all of that, I do want to start off by saying this. Everybody that we've dealt with Solar Titan USA has been really friendly, and for the most part they've done a really great job at going above and beyond communicating with us about everything along the way. A salesman came out to our house on 4th of July of 2022. We were surprised they actually made an appointment on a holiday, but we didn't have anything going on that morning, so we figured why not. Immediately our first impressions with him were that he was very friendly and professional. He was able to answer most of the questions we had while going over the various options. We shared with him that we had actually met with one of their competitors a few weeks prior and told him what they offered and the cost, and what he was able to do for us was actually provide a bigger and better system for a little bit less money. The only downside with going with Solar Titan versus the competitor was the interest rate was a little bit higher on the solar loan. We did the math, and because it had a bigger system and the overall cost was less, we'd still be saving money over the lifetime of the loan. We were told that this 11 kilowatt system would be able to offset our specific power usage by 75 to 90% over the course of the year. The summer's going to produce more energy than the winter because there's more available sunlight. Makes sense, right? Ashley and I had discussed this a lot before the salesman had shown up, so after hearing the numbers and seeing what the system could provide for us, we went ahead and signed up. He emailed me a link for an online application for the loan, and I was approved within seconds. At this point, all the paperwork was signed, and we started this wild journey for energy independence. Ironically, 4 days after signing all the paperwork, we had a power outage for 12.5 hours. We took that as a sign that this was the right decision. Installation for the system was scheduled for August 4th, but they called us on the 2nd and told us they'd be arriving on the 3rd because they finished up another job early. We got a little time-lapse footage for you while they were installing the panels on the roof. Our cat was not happy about all the noises she heard during this whole process. Unfortunately, they weren't able to do any of the electrical work because apparently our breakers in the home are different than most breakers, and they didn't have the components with them, so they had to special order them and come back later. They came back out on August 22nd to complete the job. They had to cut open the drywall under our breakers in order to run all of the wire under our home to get to the main meter and to all of the other equipment they installed on the side of our home. The outside equipment they installed included a 10 kilowatt battery, power inverter, dual power supply, critical load panel, and a power disconnect box. I'm going to do my best to explain the system and how it works in terms that are easy to understand. As you probably already know, the panels on the roof collect UV energy that the sun produces. That means that the system's still going to produce power even on cloudy days, kind of like the same way you can still get a sunburn when it's overcast. We're going to be making another video very soon that shows how much our system produces on a sunny day versus a cloudy day. So if you don't already, subscribe to our channel and hit the notification bell so you don't miss that one. The energy collected by the panels runs down a cable into the power inverter that converts the DC electricity into AC electricity that homes use. From there, the battery gets charged first, and once it's full, all of that additional energy goes to power the home. Anything we overproduce that's not consumed by the home gets sent back to the grid. We'll talk about that more in a few minutes. When the sun begins to set and the system is no longer producing power, the battery kicks in and starts powering our 4 critical loads. The critical loads are essentially breakers that we chose specifically to have as emergency backup in the event of a power outage. We chose the breakers that power our refrigerator because we need our food to stay cold, our kitchen outlets because we have an upright freezer as well as several appliances that we can use for various cooking methods, our den so that our internet stays on and we have various methods of entertainment, and our shed that we use to store our freezers that contain all of the meat that we produce here on the farm. The everyday scenario is pretty simple. We get our power from the grid before the sun rises, and as it begins to rise, it starts charging our battery. Once the battery is full, it begins powering our home, and anything excess gets sent back to the grid. As the sun sets, the battery starts providing power to our critical loads, and once the battery gets down to 35%, we are entirely back to on-grid energy consumption. Now let's talk about a power outage. In the event of a power outage, the system actually stops sending excess power back to the grid, because if there are lines down and someone's working on them, they could get electrocuted because they are not expecting power to be coming from the other end. The battery will continue to charge, and as long as the sun's up, our critical loads should be powered. When the sun goes down, those critical loads will start operating off the battery again. We haven't had a power outage since the system has been operational, so we're not sure if during full sun at maximum energy production, if any of our other breakers will be powered, but we'll definitely let you know once that happens. So, the system was installed, but it wasn't operational because they needed to have an inspector come out to make sure that all of the electrical was done correctly. For those of you who don't know, Ashley's parents live in their camper on our property. They were actually out of town during the installation of all this electrical stuff. Ashley went over to the camper to check on something about 4 days later and discovered that there was no power to the camper. We immediately called Solar Titan to let them know that something they must have done cut off the power to the camper. Unfortunately, it was after normal business hours, so all we got was an answering service, and they weren't able to do anything for us. First thing Monday morning, we called them back and let them know the situation. Luckily, we had documented all of the food that had to be thrown away from their fridge and freezers, and we sent that over to them, and they said that they would probably reimburse us for it. It just had to get sent up to a manager for approval. It took them 23 days to approve the claim, and we got the check 4 days later. So let's get back to the issue. The following day, they had a crew come out to assess what was going on and troubleshoot to try to figure out what exactly had happened. After some investigation, they discovered that the neutral wire powering the breaker to the camper had been disconnected. That must have happened while they were running all the wire inside the box. It was a quick and easy fix, and it instantly restored power to the camper. On September 19th, so 3.5 weeks after installation was complete, an electrician came out to inspect the system. He found that 2 cables were installed incorrectly, so he just switched them and said everything else was good. He called Solar Titan USA to let them know that we passed the inspection, and they walked him through the process of getting the system turned on and commissioned. They were on speakerphone, and I was right there, so I heard the entire conversation. They walked him through the entire process, and they told him that the system was booting, should take about 30 to 45 minutes, and then the system was going to be fully operational. After the phone call ended, he said, "Alright, you should be good really soon, I'm going to head out now." Well, guess what? The system wasn't operational. Solar Edge has an app that monitors the entire system and shows you how much energy is being produced, how much energy is being consumed, how much is being overproduced and sent back from the grid, and how much you're pulling from the grid, as well as the environmental impact of your system. This app should have shown that we were producing power. I called the next morning and they scheduled a crew to come out and troubleshoot for the following week. They arrived at 8:30 p.m. after it was dark. During the hour and a half they were here, they found several problems that needed to be repaired. There was a broken wire going to the battery, the ground wire for the panels on the roof wasn't connected, several of the cables in the inverter weren't wired correctly, and the panel optimizers were never paired with the system, so therefore the panels were not operational. They made all the repairs, but because it was dark outside, they weren't able to test to see if the system was actually functioning. Well, guess what? The next morning when the sun started to rise, nothing. I called Solar Titan USA again. They told me that they were going to try to remotely start up the system and it could take a few hours. Throughout the day I kept looking at the Solar Edge app to see if the system began running. About 2 p.m. it was finally operational, but for some reason the battery wasn't working. I looked and it shows that the last time the battery communicated with the system was while they were here working on the battery. I went outside and looked at the battery and noticed that the power lights were not on, despite the fact that all of the switches were in the on position. I went back inside and called Solar Titan again, and they told me they were going to try to do something else remotely that should get it back online and working. The next day it wasn't working, so I called them back and they told me they'd have to schedule somebody to come out that had a special certification to work on the battery, and they won't be out here for another 2 weeks. That was 6 days ago from the time of this recording, so we'll make sure to update you in a video coming soon. So as of right now, our system is fully functioning with the exception of the battery, which is technically an optional component. So let's talk about our first impressions with this fully functioning solar system. We bought an 11 kilowatt system with optimizers that are supposed to increase the solar production by up to 25%, but the most we've produced so far on a sunny day for a 15-minute period is 8.5 kilowatt hours. We did see a spike of 10 for a split second, but that was it. We called Solar Titan again to ask for some clarification because we didn't understand why our 11 kilowatt system wasn't producing 11 kilowatts in full sun, let alone the up to 25% additional. They told me that I don't understand the difference between kilowatts and kilowatt hours. The system works as expected if you're producing at least 4 times your kilowatt rating in kilowatt hours over the course of a day. Based on our system, 44 kilowatt hours in a day is what we should expect. Well, we use about 90 to 110 kilowatt hours a day on average according to our power bill, and we were promised 75 to 90% of an offset, so we don't really understand the math. To be honest, I'm not so sure we would have signed up if we had known the reality of the situation. The first full day of solar production was September 21st, and we produced 55.6 kilowatt hours in that day. Hey, that's better than 44, but it's nowhere near that 90 to 110. There was another really peculiar thing that we noticed. The monitoring software shows that we took 38.3 kilowatt hours from the grid to power our home that day. What they don't know is we went out to our meter at the beginning and end of the day at midnight to get a true 24-hour reading on our meter to see what the power company uses to bill us. It showed that we used 65 kilowatt hours. So why is there a 26.7 kilowatt hour difference just for one day? If there's a similar discrepancy over the course of the month, that's over 800 kilowatt hours in 1 month that we're being billed that according to this software shows that we're not even using. At our rate, that's almost $100 extra we're being billed every single month. So does that mean that there's an issue with the Solar Edge monitoring software? Or does that mean that there's an issue with our meter and the power company is just overcharging us? Solar Titan told us that there's absolutely no way that their equipment is at fault, and it must be the power company. We've been taking pictures of our meter every single night at midnight, and once we get more data to collect, we're going to call our utility company and find out exactly what's going on. Speaking of the electric company, we're going to go ahead and start talking about some of the solar misconceptions now. Every electric company has their own specific rules about what they do with the power you send back to them. Some of them buy it back, but at a cheaper rate than they charge you. They might charge you 11 cents per kilowatt hour that you use, but they're only going to buy back the kilowatts that you send back to them for 3 cents. Luckily, the power company we use does something called net metering. What that means is for every 1 kilowatt hour you send them, they give you a credit for 1 kilowatt hour. Hopefully what that means is during the summer months, we're not going to have any charges on our monthly bill with the exception of a service fee, and we'll begin banking credits that will be used for fall and hopefully the first part of winter. We're definitely going to be sharing our experience over the next several years on our channel. So let's talk about the tax credit now. When we chose to go solar back in July, the federal tax credit was 26% of the total cost of the system. But since then a bill was passed that increased it to 30%. So that's pretty cool, right? Our system cost us $69,750. So 30% of that is $20,925. That sounds pretty great, doesn't it? On our tax return, we're going to get almost $21,000 back because of this tax credit? Well, not so fast. This is a non-refundable tax credit. The only way we're going to see that $21,000 is if we pay $21,000 in federal taxes by working a W-2 job. We're self-employed and we don't pay federal taxes throughout the year. The last couple years and this year we're not even profitable, so we don't owe anything in taxes anyway. Now this credit can be carried over a 10-year period, so as long as our farm continues to grow and we are profitable at some point, at least we won't have to pay that $21,000 in taxes. Hopefully. Here's another misconception that all the solar companies try to sell you on. When these companies are talking about financing and monthly loan payments, they assume that you're going to take that federal tax credit and apply it directly to the principal of the loan, re-amortize the loan to lower the monthly payment while keeping the same terms of the loan. That is the absolute worst advice they could give you. By lowering your monthly payment, true, you don't have to pay as much every month, but because of that compounding interest, you're going to end up paying so much more over the course of that loan. If you take that same tax credit and apply it to the principal of your loan and don't re-amortize and just continue making those same higher monthly payments, you'll actually pay your loan off 12 to 15 years faster depending on your interest rate. In our specific example, if we were actually getting that $21,000 in the spring when we get our tax return, if we applied it to the loan and continued making those same payments, we'll have our loan paid off in 14 years and save $40,000 in interest payments. $40,000. Or you can not do what we suggest and spend that extra $40,000 in interest payments, but at least you'll have a lower monthly payment. We've only had this Solar Edge solar power system functioning for a week, so maybe it's a little early to form a solid opinion, but we wanted to share our first impressions with you. They say that the high cost of going with a solar power system will still pay for itself after 10 to 15 years despite having these monthly payments for 25 years. I guess we'll see. We've been taking lots of videos, pictures, and screenshots this past week, and we're going to show you exactly how much we've produced, how much we've sent back to the grid, how much we've consumed according to the Solar Edge app, and how much we've consumed according to the meter. Look out for that video in a week or so, or maybe you're watching this in the future after this video's been out for a little while, so you can click right here and see that video. We also plan on posting lots of update videos over the next several years, so if you don't already, please subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss those. Also, please hit the thumbs up and comment below if you have any comments or have any questions you'd like to ask us. We really look forward to reading all those comments and responding to each and every one of them. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you next time.